This is Cat, the Catster, and I am not an archaeologist, nor have I been involved in any archaeology. I see a lot of stuff on YouTube and the History Channel and Ancient Aliens and all that stuff. A fan of archaeology and history and that kind of thing. Not so much of Ancient Aliens and ancient artifact stuff. I used to watch back in the 80s when Dr. Gene Scott, this old televangelist preacher, would go on about the pyramids, exploring the chambers and all that, trying to figure out what that was, based on evidence from 82 or 83. You see, there have been other explorations of the Egyptian pyramids since then. Although Ancient Architects is an excellent channel for educated guesses. I thought to chime in on this one just because, the Dunn, what's his name, Dunn? Chris Dunn. I'm familiar with Christopher Dunn's book, and it's speculative fiction. Yeah, it's speculative fiction. Just say that. I've heard of it. He was on Ancient Aliens. He was on Ancient Mysteries. There's another guy. Salsa, I don't know the names of all of the guys. There used to be this Egyptian antiquities guy that went on when exploring around in the pyramid. Not D'Souza, that's somebody else. It was Salsa. But the Egyptians is always fascinating because after all they have a Sphinx cat and they like cats. That was built long before the pyramids, even, and then refurbished several times. But we're not talking about the Sphinx. We're talking about the Great Pyramid. What is the Great Pyramid? The big mystery of the Great Pyramid. Several speculative theories, including the bizarre Ben Carson theory of a grain silo, which is impossible. There are they got some probes in there in the 2000s. Actually, they got some probes in there in the 1800s, and there are pieces of the probes from the guy from the 1800s, all littering this shaft that they found at the King's Chamber shaft. Familiar with the shaft in that I saw things on it, on the and the guy who went in the shaft. I haven't been there. I just saw it on TV. So speculative fiction as well, and that's the caveat. So we have metal rods from the 1800s and the 1900s that were shoved into this little shaft. And they're making it look really big on camera, but it's this big. It's literally this big. It's maybe 8 by 10, maybe a little bit bigger, maybe 12, 24. Real small, just long, narrow shaft. What is this thing? At the end, it has a capstone, and at the back, at the very back, it angles a little bit, and then it goes back. It's not blocking the King's Chamber. It's not on the other side of the King's Chamber, just as an Ancient Architects guy said. Also, the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, and there's a sort of a reservoir underneath, where you could be under the impression that it's some sort of water reservoir for something, and that's where they did a whole fiction book that's apparently was briefly a bestseller about. But it's fiction. It's in the fiction section. It's not in the archaeology section. Just saying, it's fiction. He's guessing. So, but in scientific method, I don't have an archaeology degree. I have a journalism degree. But that's a science too. So, you want the absence of evidence. You have to find evidence that makes sense. Whether Occam's razor as well. If you eliminate the impossible, the improbable, therefore be the correct answer. It's impossible that it is some sort of power chamber. Impossible. For one thing, if the Egyptians had electricity in ancient times during the First Dynasty, when the Romans came to sack them later on, they would have had high technology and it would have defeated the Romans. So, yeah, no. They didn't do that. Also the Sphinx thing, the cat thing, and the Isis and the cat lady. he went on about the Sphinx, and I was like, yeah, I know, Mesopotamian goddess. They named it. They're the sea people, the Mesopotamians. Anyway, the Egyptians are descended from that group and the other group that came later, the Syrian sea people. Go check out Useful Charts. They kind of already figured that out. Yeah. So, and other people have figured that out. It's kind of referenced in the Bible a little bit, but not directly as a history, but more like mysteries. But anyway, the pyramid, the Great Pyramid. They never found a tomb in there, and but they'd find like these limestone things that were coming down, and this guy's under the impression that somehow the limestone that was corroding was actually used some sort of weird chemical acetylene chamber that was somehow poured by advanced Stone Age Egyptians, pre-Bronze Age Egyptians, somehow into this chamber, and which would create quicklime and then quickly destroy the inside of the pyramid, and it would fall down into the ground and just collapse. So that doesn't work. It's not a lime reservoir. The acetone reservoir. It doesn't make any sense. It wouldn't work for that. But what it would work for is it didn't have any markings on the inside. It would work for other things other than that. The Great Pyramid. There are two possibilities, or maybe three, with why there's no tomb in there, no sarcophagus. First one is looters in antiquity took the tomb, stripped the walls, and ran off with everything. The second is it was never meant to have a tomb in it. It was symbolic. Tend to go with the second one. Is that they built this gigantic thing, and they were like, okay, well, it's symbolic. We don't need to. These rods in this chamber are interesting because they're from current times. They're modern rods in there, and he scraped the edges of this corridor thing. I'm familiar with some geology stuff and mason stuff and that kind of stuff. I make brickwork and stuff in the yard and whatever. And I'm familiar with what happens to stuff when it corrodes and erodes in a Mediterranean climate. Well, this is a Mediterranean climate, but it's not. It's the Bay Area. And it's very similar. So I've seen this kind of rock, how it corrodes, how it corroded in a desert climate, or with some water flash flooding in there and messing up stuff. Because we don't get many floods out here. Now, in ancient times, the First Dynasty, ancient architects is right, it was wetter back then. They had, even in antiquity, it was wetter back then. Into the Valley of the Kings, into Cairo. It's right next to Cairo. It's literally right next to it. Like there's the pyramids right across the road. There it is. But yeah, when you look at the map, there it is. So they had to. They have redirected the Nile in modern times. The Suez Canal and I think one other canal, Nile Canal Dam. So it was actually wetter back then. Not totally wet, but a little wetter. There was reeds and swamps and things. And during all of the kingdoms of that, and all of this from speculative television on Egypt and Egyptologists. I don't know all their names. So this is a little bit of speculation. Yes, but that's what it was. It was during the dynasties. It was wetter there, and you can see from the hieroglyphs. Yeah, it was wetter there. They had boats and people going on boats and things and moving. How else are you going to move giant rocks? You either have levers and logs and pulleys, or you have boats and float them along in the muddy basins and stuff. Probably both. Built them with ramps and things. Built the pyramids. The pyramids originally, before looters came along and looted the Valley of the Kings and built some of Cairo with it, the Great Pyramid and the other ones were considerably more detailed. And the Sphinx was more detailed. It's all torn up now, and they rebuilt it a couple times in the 1800s and the 1900s. So they changed it. I don't think that they changed the head, but we're not talking about the Sphinx. I think it already looked like that. I think it's the goddess Isis. But anyways, the Mesopotamian god. Yeah. No. I think that's what it was supposed to be. It's a chimeric cat lady. But anyway, yeah, she's like looking out to their land in the east, just like he said in the story. Yeah, I think his speculation is on point there. But yeah, they have messed with that idol. It had like other stuff on it, and it was not a dog; it was a cat. It was a lioness lady. Yeah, it's been rebuilt several times, so who knows? The pyramid though hasn't. It's been torn up several times on the outside, and probably looted. So what you got to do is So what was the Great Pyramid? If it doesn't seem to have a tomb that's been taken away, what is the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber? Why is it so small? It doesn't appear to have any people in it. I don't think it was meant to have people in it. I think it was, I'm not saying it was a Stargate to another world. That's silly, like the Stargate movies. But the Stargate people were taking from an idea from the hieroglyphs of the other world and the nether world. And the Valley of the Kings is a Valley of the Tombs that was built in the later centuries. So you have, this is fascinating. So you have, and I'm in the U.S. I could be completely wrong, but anyways, speculative. But it's more accurate than somebody claiming there's a power station and antediluvian technology in Stone Age, Bronze Age. Did not have that. That's not what it is. It's not a grain storage place like Ben Carson said either. It is a storage place gateway to the netherworld. That's what the Great Pyramid is. It's a gateway to the netherworld. It's the largest one. They had several that they were building along the thing. It was built, finished at the time of Khufu II, and so the original one wouldn't be buried there. He was buried somewhere else. And so the term Khufu, the architect, was more like a you think of it as now a company name. Like, oh, this is the Khufu that built the company name. You know, like there's a builder around here, Kidder Matthews or something, or earlier in the 80s, the Chappelle Tract. So think of it as the Chappelle. They built houses. In this case, they built pyramids. So the Khufu built pyramids, and over many decades, and they layered the thing over in all kinds of like cool shiny alabaster and stuff, which is probably where the ancient aliens guys are getting the idea that there was energy emanating from it. It wasn't energy. It was completely explainable. It was just shiny alabaster and shiny marble and stuff on the outside of the thing, which was torn off and taken away to build Cairo or by looters or whatever over time. And there's only pieces of it left. But yeah, the whole thing was smooth, and there was like it was stepped, but smooth. And there was like this shiny, and it looked shiny, and it would like glow almost like there was a golden tip on the top of it. Yeah, it was kind of like the dollar bill. Yeah, and it would glow. So yeah, it would look shiny, but it was just shiny rock. They just polished it, made it look really shiny. So people came along and took all the shiny panels off because they thought they looked pretty. We don't know where they are now. They're gone. So yeah, it was shiny looking. It was a gateway to the afterlife in the Egyptian culture. The gateway to the afterlife. And the whole city was the whole tomb city, which is different from Mesoamerican pyramids, even though I thought there was always a connection. But it turns out that human beings will build a pyramidal structure if they want to make a mountain. That in masonry and stuff, and building stuff. You build a base that's going to be solid. Maybe it's square or octagonal, and you go up, and and you make a pyramid. 4 sides, or 8 sides, or whatever. And it's just sturdier that way if you want to build a lasting stone monument. They had very advanced technology for their time. They were able to build that stuff very accurately because they could figure it out. They're still Stone Age people, and they weren't super advanced, and they didn't have power. They didn't have like fucking construction machinery. They didn't have that. They had their version of construction machinery, like wood, pulleys, levers, that kind of thing, which they can find elements of. And then they say, "Oh, look at the end of the thing. What is the capstone thing? What is the shaft thing? Oh, it must be something to do with powers and stuff." No, that's where the last people that snuck in there. They drilled those holes. Those people were trying to get in there. So the guy crawled into that meter-long shaft all the way down it. Sent a little guy up there, like when they sent the rover in there. Sent a little dude up there. and he carved those. So that was later. Yeah, it's just a capstone, close off the edge of the shaft. The shaft was meant as an air shaft. When they were constructing the bottom part, they didn't want to suffocate the workers and kill them, so there's an air shaft. It's just an air shaft, and they blocked it off when they were done with it. That's all. It's nothing astounding. It's an air shaft. It doesn't go anywhere now because they blocked it off on their way out. They built the chamber down here, front floor, built the chamber here. They said, well, we don't need to go down in the basement anymore. We don't need to go to the king's chamber anymore because we're going to build the queen's chamber on top, so we'll just close it off. Here, mortar it off, close it off. Yeah. Just an air shaft. It's all. Nothing mystical. It's an air shaft. It's not even supposed to hide any deities or anything because there's nothing written on the walls to indicate that. Anyway, so, but yeah, but that's a speculation as well. But it's more realistic speculation than it's a power chamber for generating power. No, it was entirely done with Stone Age stuff. It was entirely done to be shiny and spectacular when it was finished, and to glisten and whatever. That was yeah, and you can do that without magic. You can make it look like, you know. Anyway, so that's my take on the pyramid thing. It's a more speculative fiction, but it makes more sense. It was a gateway to the netherworld.